everybody, this is Tim Wolf, and today's topic is, the report is out, what was the top streaming album in 2020, and also singles and physical copies and downloads, information by genre, and we're going to dive right into that. Hi, I'm Tim Wolf. I'm a Nashville singer-songwriter, and you can listen to my music. There's links down below in the comments. You can listen to my Spotify, and there's also some merch links and some other information if you'd be interested in checking that out. So let's get right into it. MRC Data is really the authoritative research firm when it comes to determining the charts. In fact, Billboard uses MRC Data to put together the Billboard charts. And so they have come out with the top streaming album of 2020. Is it Taylor Swift? Is it The Weeknd? No. It's one that I did not expect. Lil Baby, My Turn album. Lil Baby ended the year in the US, 3.9 billion on-demand streams for its tracks. According to MRC Data, it would be Billboard, that's the #1 album for 2020. And the #2 album, according to the Billboard charts for 2020, is Taylor Swift's Folklore. There is some other data that came out. Rolling Stone came out with a year-end report released earlier this week that had Taylor's album #1 and Lil Baby second. But there's a slight difference in how they report. One thing that the Billboard also includes video tracks, YouTube example, and apparently Rolling Stone doesn't. And there's some other variations in their methodology. That's the difference because Lil Baby had amazing presence on video. So that's why he outlasted Taylor Swift for #1 for the year of 2020. And at the beginning of 2020, or the beginning of the pandemic, for the first 2 months, streaming was actually down in volume, down pretty considerably, but it turned around substantially and ended up being up 17%, which is a record. The biggest growth in the history of streaming in the US was up 17%. And that's very significant because before that it was growing, if I remember, usually in the low teens, 12-13% in that range year on year, and every year it gets bigger, so the same percent growth is going to be that many more streams. And so the streaming business is just taking off, and not just in the US, outside the US the streaming growth was substantially more. It was 22% in the year 2020. Now, one thing to keep in mind that this article doesn't say, but I do know that other countries are behind the US in what percent of their music consumption comes from streaming. Because, for example, I was at a music conference, I think in 2018 or maybe it was 2019, here in Nashville, and there was a contingent from Germany, and they had said that CDs are still 50% of the consumption of albums in Germany. And I know in Japan as well, they still sell a lot of CDs. As far as the percentage of consumption in the US, it's way, way, way less than 50%. 80% of, more than 80%, it's probably 85% now. That 80% number is a couple years old, of music sales in the US comes from streaming. 80% plus. And the 20% remaining is divvied up over physical sales and digital downloads. So streaming is on a tear, and it's probably not going away anytime soon. So back to what I was talking about in the first 2 months of the year, streaming declined 5.7% in the US. But after that, I guess all of us figured out that music is a great thing to soothe the soul during the very troubled times of the lockdown of the pandemic, and streaming just took off, made a complete reversal, and took off and ended up for the year up 17% in the US. My Turn from Lil Baby was the most consumed album of the year overall, with 2.63 million units tallied, and Taylor Swift's Folklore came in second at 2.2 million tallied. As far as actual sales go, actual album sales, which means excluding streaming, which would be physical sales and downloads, Taylor Swift just cleaned up in that category, and Folklore had 1.28 million copies sold in 2020 in the US. As far as singles go, the #1 single was Roddy Ricch's The Box, with 1.3 billion streams and 1.7 billion audience impressions by radio. That's a lot of listening. Internationally, the #1 track of the year was WAP by Cardi B featuring Megan Thee Stallion. And speaking of Cardi and Megan, this year was the first year where 5 women were on either the leading or on a feature of the #1 song on Billboard's Hot 100 during the year. And compared to that, a total of 6 in entire of the history of the chart prior to 2020. Let me say that again. The presence of 5 rappers, we're talking about rappers, 5 female rappers were either primary or featured artists on the #1 song on the Hot 100. 5 in the year 2020. And before that, the total had been 6. So female rappers in the US are just coming on like gangbusters. And the 5 are Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, Nicki Minaj, m.i.a, and Doja Cat. So as far as digital music sales, physical sales, either download or physical, consumers continued to devaluate owning music. And global sales were down 19%, and the decline was even harsher in the US, down 22%. Now remember, we rely more on streaming, so our numbers are even smaller as a percent. So in the US, the CD is just going away, going the way of the dodo bird, in my opinion. I've said this before in previous videos. We don't even have ways to play them. You buy a car, they don't even put CD players in cars anymore. Now other countries are not at that level yet. Japan and Germany are 2 that I know specifically, still consume a lot of music using CDs, and they also showed less of a downturn than we did. But streaming is where it's at going forward in the US. Total album sales, that includes digital and downloads, were down 9.2%. But almost all of that was on the CD side. Vinyl is just booming in the US. Vinyl can no longer be considered a niche product. It was up almost 50% on unit sales in the US. That is amazing, 2019 to 2020. Vinyl is up 46.2% and representing a leap from 18.8 million LP copies to 27.5 million copies. That's a lot of growth. And we better stop saying or thinking, if anyone is still thinking, that vinyl sales is just a niche product. It is just coming on, and it's got to be considered. If you're an artist like I am, we've got to realize that vinyl is a viable platform, and we need to have vinyl in our catalog, which I don't. It's one of my things moving forward for 2021. As far as trends by genre, Latin music fans were up substantially. Spanish language pop experienced a 27% increase and a 29% overall and a 29% on-demand streams since the beginning of the pandemic. And, surprise, surprise, I'm here in Nashville, country music has long been lagging when it comes to streaming, but country music fans finally woke up to the benefit of streaming, so to speak. Big leaps were made in 2020. A record was set in the week ending July 9th when country songs were streamed 1.4 billion times. And some of that comes from Luke Combs. What you see is what you get. At 95.6 million streams in the debut week. And that week, his album had the most streams of any album at all. And that's the first time a country album has ever taken that. So country streaming is coming on. A little late to the party, but it's coming in with a noise. So on the list of the most consumed albums, we said Little Baby's My Turn and Taylor Swift's Folklore. After that, we had Pop Smoke's his posthumously released album, 2.19 million units. The Weeknd, Juice WRLD, Post Malone, Lil Uzi Vert, Ricky Rich, Harry Styles, and Luke Combs to round out the top 10. And as far as actual album sales, Folklore was #1, just cleaned up on that. And that actual album sales means physical and downloads. And BTS Map of the Soul came in second. Map of the Soul 7. Rounding out the top 10 were the artists The Weeknd, Styles, Billie Eilish, Lady Gaga, Juice WRLD, Halsey, Eminem, and Swift, with her December release of Evermore. So listen to that. Taylor put out 2 albums in 2020, and both were a surprise. And the second one was released in December, I think it was mid-December, Evermore, and it still made the top 10 of the album physical sales chart. That blows my mind. She's got so much power, Taylor Swift. As far as physical sales go, excluding the downloads, BTS beat Swift for the #1 spot. Which makes sense because in Asia there's still, well, I don't know if BTS, a lot of their fans are Asian fans, but certainly in Japan and I assume Korea, they do consume more CDs than streams, and that might have carried over to the fans of BTS. I don't know, I'm just speculating. So as far as top album release, Harry Styles had the top album release, selling 233,000 copies of Fine Line, and Billie Eilish came in second, and actually had 2 releases that were in vinyl in the top 10. In digital song consumption, both streaming and downloads, so that's excluding physical sales, excluding CDs, physical sales. Ricky Rich came in #1, 7.6 million songs by The Weeknd, Blinding Lights with 6, and the box racked up, as I said, a phenomenal 1.3 billion streams. Just cleaned up, counting both audio and video. The second biggest on-demand streaming song was Future and Drake's Life is Good with 1 billion. Individual tracks download, which is also, as I mentioned, going down. BTS was the #1 bestseller with 1.3 million. Dynamite, Blinding Lights was a distant second at 580,000. And Gabby Barrett's I Hope came in third with 351,000. The Weeknd was first place on one chart, top radio songs, with 3.8 billion audience impressions for Blinding Lights. Post Malone's Circles was second, biggest radio song with 3.5 million impressions. Yeah, The Weeknd, I think I'm going to be making a video about that. I mean, it continues, the saga continues. He was shut out of the Grammy noms, which is a tragedy, considering all his success. There's 83 categories in the Grammys, and not one category could they find a place for The Weeknd's album, which has incredible critical and commercial success. It's a travesty. So as far as genres, what was the top genre? Was R&B hip hop, 28%. That's no surprise. Followed by rock with 19.5%, pop with 12.9%. So that's interesting. Rock, maybe rock's coming back. Rock, or how to define rock, but rock was above pop as far as the second place genre. Country with 7.9%, Latin with 4.7%, dance, electronica with 3.2%, and Christian gospel with 1.9%. So that's the summary of 2020. We just survived it. We have to pat ourselves on the back. We made it through a pretty tough year, and 2021 has already started out to be pretty adventurous, eventful, and I hope you're all well. I myself am still very optimistic for 2021. I think we can make it a phenomenal year. Thank you for all your engagement on my videos, watching my videos, and your comments. I try to respond to every single comment. I appreciate you. Please don't hesitate to give me ideas for what you think would make a good video for me to comment on. And I'll see you on the next video. Hey everybody, this is Tim Wolf. Thank you so much for watching my video. Please go to the link down below in the description. There's a Bitly link. Listen to my music at Spotify. I appreciate it very much. It means a lot to an artist if you follow them. If you would be kind enough to like the video if you enjoyed it and share it with your friends. Finally, be sure to subscribe. And then also there are other videos on this screen that you can watch. And I'll see you next time. Thank you so much.